Ah, the electric pony. And so we meet again. The Ford Mustang Mach-e has been silently galloping our streets for the past year and a half now. And that's actually when I first got a taste of this car. And this is a great big marketing ploy by Ford back when it was first released. And I was a little bit underwhelmed. So those were my first thoughts on the Mach-e. What do you think? Do you agree with them? I'm still not convinced. But let's face it, I may be now an electric connoisseur, but back then I was very much a petrol head. And when they released a car with the Mustang badge, I just had that V8 ringing on my ears, and it was blocking me out from comparing this car as a practical family electric SUV. But a lot has changed in a year and a half. In fact, in that year and a half, a ton of competitors have come out for the Mustang Mach-e, and I've also driven pretty much all of them that there is to drive. So today I'm going to revisit the Mustang Mach-e, but I'm going to ignore that badge, forget about that V8, and I'm going to review this as an electric family SUV. So, will my feelings and thoughts change on this car? Well, you'll have to watch if you want to find out. If you do like new car reviews and car content, then please don't forget to go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So let's start by the styling. Finished in this quite striking red. It looks great, doesn't it? Now, there's a few different models to go through when it comes to the Mustang Mach-e, which I'll explain in a little bit more detail in a voiceover because it all gets a little bit confusing. But the model that I'm driving is the standard range and the four-wheel drive model. Now, the way that you can tell that this is a four-wheel drive model is that the wheels are slightly larger and I've got some red brake calipers, which look really nice, contrasting with this red paintwork. And it's funny actually, because I feel like I'm looking at this car with a brand new set of eyes. Back a year and a half ago, I had a lot of expectations of what electric SUVs would look like. And I guess when I first saw the Mustang, I was a little bit disappointed because I was expecting a sports car and I couldn't look past that. But now I can. And now I really appreciate how this car looks. I think it's very smart. I really like the wide kind of haunches on it. I also really like the sloping roofline, which I did mention before, but they've actually used a little bit of gloss black to give it a silhouette of a coupe. But it's actually far more practical than a coupe, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. I actually think that looking at this car, it looks like a sketch when you first see them doing concept cars and you get those sketches where everything looks very aerodynamic. The Mustang Mach-e has actually kept that look about it. You'll also notice that something very important is missing. It doesn't have any door handles at all. Instead, it's got a little button on the pillar which you press and then you can pull using this little jut out area. I actually really like this. It helps it keep it sleek and stylish, and you don't have to worry about those silly little pop-out door handles which sometimes work and sometimes don't. They seem to have come up with an answer to, I guess you could say, a problem, but let's face it, was door handles really ever a problem? Probably not, but it does make it feel more modern and more stylish. You also have the fancy little keypad on the side as well, so if you wanted to unlock your car using the keypad, you can do that. But I really don't see when all of these cars come as keyless as standard. If you've got your key in your bag, then you're going to use the button, let's face it, unless you really wanted to show off to people in your family or your friends, which, yeah, actually I do that quite a lot and I quite like it. But that's me as a person that likes technology. For most people, I think it's just overcomplicating things. Little side note, Ford have gone through so much effort to let you know this is a Mustang. You've got the badges on the front, on the centre caps, on the steering wheel. However, you get this, which is a boring old Ford key, which is exactly the same as the Fiesta or anything like that. That's a little bit disappointing.
So let's dive into those specs, and I'll try to keep it simple. I joked around a year ago that the first electric Ford must wear a Mustang badge as a marketing ploy, but really it's likely all came about because of the price. The cheapest entry-level rear-wheel drive standard range car starts from a touch under £51,000, so they're definitely in premium car territory. This car gets an electric driving range of between 202 and 273 miles claimed by Ford, so you can imagine it'll be a little under 250 in the real world. There is an extended range of the rear-wheel drive model, which this time Ford claims 293 to 372 miles. But more miles will cost more money, and this time there isn't much change from £60,000. All-wheel drive increases the practicality and power, but drops the range and adds another £5,000. And the range-topping spicy GT model is seriously quick, as well as has lots of nice styling details. But once again, that doesn't come cheap, and that will set you back almost £74,500.
That sneaky black roof design means that you get more storage inside the boot of the Mustang Mach-e than the coupe design may lead you to believe. Inside here you get a decent 401 litres of space. Not quite as much as the Volkswagen ID4 or the Tesla Model Y, but still, it's nice and usable. You get an adjustable boot floor to give you a little bit of extra storage, and you can also put it in its upright position, if I can get it done smoothly. Yeah, just about. And that will give you a nice flat load bay. And you can also put the rear seats down in a 60-40 split, and they will be flush completely. So it's handy for loading large items in. However, I am slightly disappointed that there's no mega box like you get in the Ford Puma, which allows you to have extra storage and rinse out things like welly boots. But that's likely because the battery is underneath the floor, so there wouldn't be any space to have additional storage. However, if that boot space isn't quite enough for yours and your family's needs, then there is some extra space underneath the bonnet, in the fruit, or the front, or whatever you want to call it. Now, my only issue with these storages is most of the time, unless you've got a Tesla, you have to use the bonnet release, which is a little bit awkward. However, I do like on the Mustang that you click it twice and then it completely unlocks it, so no fiddling around to find a bonnet latch. Inside here, you will find 81 extra litres of boot space, which is really handy, as you can see, for your cables. However, you know how I was mentioning that I miss that mega box that you get in the petrol Ford Puma? Well, it's not quite a mega box, but it works very similar, because if I lift these cables out, you've got a little drainage plug in the bottom of your Mustang Mach-e's fruit. And this means that you can put muddy boots or even a muddy dog in there, wash them down, and it'll all rinse out, which is actually so handy. So back behind the wheel of the electric pony, and as I kind of expected, it's a real different experience a year down the line. When I first drove the Mustang Mach-e, I think there was a handful of electric cars that I'd driven before it. This time around, I'm a bit of an electric car connoisseur, shall we say. I've driven pretty much everything out there. In fact, if there's anything I've not driven between this channel and Electroheads, please let me know because I'm running out of work. But it definitely is a new experience because I'm noticing things that I didn't notice the first time around. I'm noticing that on the Mustang Mach-e, the steering is much heavier than in a lot of electric cars. Now, I have tried out all the different modes. So Whisper, which is your really quiet mode, which will reserve as much of the battery as possible. You've got the active mode, which I guess is a normal mode as such. And then you've got the untamed mode, which is supposed to be their performance orientated mode. But throughout all of these modes, the steering remains very firm. And that's a good thing for keen drivers because it helps you to feel connected to this car. And you're going to need to feel connected to this car as well because it's quite thrashy at low speeds. So you do kind of feel like you're clinging onto it, which I guess, if you like that kind of thing, if you like your fun rear-wheel drive BMWs, then perhaps this is a car for you, an electric car for you, which isn't going to feel too dissimilar from some electric cars which will completely drive themselves, like the Tesla Model Y. That car takes away the driving experience. However, I think Ford have managed to still continue with that driving experience. I know, very different praise from when I first drove this car. And actually, talking about rear-wheel drive BMWs, did you know that with the rear-wheel drive Mustang Mach-e, you can get it to slide round corners? Yep, I mean, I haven't tried it myself, but I know some people that have, and it's meant to be pretty good fun, and that's the entry-level car. Unfortunately, for me and for Ford, the one that I'm driving is the all-wheel drive model, so hopefully there'll be no slipping around corners today. But yeah, definitely this time around I can feel a much bigger connection to this as an actual car compared to some of the electric cars that I've driven.
Charging is unfortunately a bit of a lukewarm effort. It's fitted with an 11 kilowatt onboard charger for Type 2 AC at home charging as standard, and the extended range models, not the one that I'm driving, are capable of ultra rapid charging up to 150 kilowatts from a DC charger. However, this standard range model is only able to charge at a maximum rate of 110 kilowatts. Still, that might not sound a lot compared to some of its rivals, but you can still add 56 miles of range in just 10 minutes.
Hello! Hey, yo, sweetheart. I've got a little friend with me today. Riley, what do you think of the Mustang Mach-e? He quite likes it. You'd be able to hose you down in the front bit, wouldn't you? Right, so let Mummy Tisha do her job now. So the interior of the Mustang Mach-e, well, it's pretty unoffensive, but it doesn't feel particularly special, especially not for a car which is in upwards of £50,000. It shares a lot of parts with the standard Fords, including the buttons on the steering wheel, the buttons down the side, the indicators. But of course, there's one thing which stands out, and that's this massive screen. Ford have actually gone very Tesla-esque with this screen. They've got a portrait, it really is massive. And you've also got your climate control dials at the bottom, which stay there all the time, which is super handy, just like Tesla. He's a good boy. The rear seats of the Mustang Mach-e are pretty good. I've actually got a decent amount of headroom, thanks to that kind of false coupe effect. You get the styling from the outside, but you get a good amount of headroom in the back. It's also really soft, you've got a nice flat bench, so 3 people can sit side by side. The only problem is this centre console does come quite far back, so it does intrude on the person sitting in the middle's leg space, which is a bit of a shame. Amenities are okay. I really like when cars have both a USB and a USB-C port because it gives you options, and we have got both of those in the back. I've also got a pull-out armrest with a couple of cup holders, but unfortunately there isn't any through loading. Unlike some other EVs from other manufacturers, the Mach-e actually uses a dedicated electric platform, and that's been developed by Ford to take full advantage of the extra weight, giving it even weight distribution, with the battery positioned between the axles and beneath the floor, and this gives it a really good low centre of gravity. The torque is also all deployed within just half a second, and battery power is transferred to an oil-cooled rear-mounted AC motor to drive the rear wheels, and in this instance also the front wheels. The entry-level rear-wheel drive Mustang Mach-e will actually go from 0 to 62 in just 6.9 seconds. Yep, it's quicker than even most of the small electric cars, and it's pretty good for an SUV. The all-wheel drive model that I'm driving has dual electric motors, and that means that this car accelerates from 0 to 62 in 5.1 seconds. That's quick. And also there's the GT model with a massive 860 newton meters of torque, and that can do the sprint in, get this, 3.7 seconds. That is rapid. So whichever way you look at it, the Mustang Mach-e cannot be faulted for its acceleration, which in every instance is quite eye-watering. So, a little over a year and a half later, and have my thoughts and feelings changed about the Mustang Mach-e? Well, I can confidently say they have. When this car was first released, I, like a lot of other people, had some really high expectations for something which resembled a muscle car. And a muscle car, it's certainly not, but what it is a really practical, competitive family car. And had I always held it to that standard rather than always thinking about that V8 Mustang, I probably would have always thought that this was a very impressive car. The second time around, I see it for what it was designed to be. And that is a fun family electric SUV. I just wish that Ford had had enough confidence in their product to launch it as that, because there's definitely nothing that this car misses. It's good at charging, it's got a really decent amount of range, and it's got that performance as well. So I definitely think that people would have bought this, whether it had a Ford badge or a Mustang badge. And I just wish that Ford had had that confidence, because let's face it, people like Kia, Hyundai, they're selling £50,000 cars every single day. And people aren't worried about what badge it has on it. But let me know, what do you guys think of the Mustang Mach-e? Perhaps you've purchased one in the last year. Are you enjoying it? Is there anything you don't like? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed the video, as ever, please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And if you wanted to see more videos from me on this channel, Auto Social UK, then you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Until next time, guys, see you later.